All right. Welcome to Project Stargate Fringe Research. I'm your host, Mark Brenner.
I'm co-host Greg Ship.
And from an undisclosed location somewhere in Appalachia, I am your co-host, Jake Malcolm.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Boy, do we have an exciting episode for you today. We're going to be bringing on the spooky woo with Bishop Rita, an ordained exorcist and priest in some form of the Catholic Church. We're going to learn more about what type of Catholic she is. I'm really excited about having her on. But before we bring her on here, just a few minutes. Guys, how's it been going? Greg, what you been up to?
I'm doing well. Actually, I want to show you guys something.
Please do.
One of my hobbies, apart from researching the paranormal, is I also like to paint miniatures. And I have some 10 millimeter, I don't know if you'll be able to see it well, Napoleonic Spanish infantry.
Oh, wow. That's cool as crap. You should take some high-res pictures, and we'll put them on our website to show everybody.
Yeah, I just got to get some little flags on the stand bearers, but I'll be done with these.
Yeah, I've seen Jake. One time he came over before he moved. He came over to hang out. He used to come over and we'd hang out all night, just literally all night. And he brought his. It was actually the night you met my mother-in-law, Greg.
Yeah. It was a while back.
But he brought some D&D. He painted some D&D figures. He does all that stuff. He's great.
I got one right here. It's half painted, unfortunately.
Do you do that under a microscope then? Or magnifying glass, I guess?
I'm kind of cheap to get a magnifying glass. I do want to get one at some point, but usually just under a very strong light. This is Whiz Kid miniatures.
Wow, that's beautiful. I love the stunning detail on the horse, especially in his armor. That is just I wish our listeners could see this, but I guess those of us watching on YouTube can see it.
I love Whiz Kids miniatures. They're really good. Very well detailed.
Well, you are a whiz kid, sir. You are a whiz kid.
Well, thank you.
Greg, sometime you and I will have to talk outside of this. I'm moving right now, but after I get settled, I've got a 3D printer and I can hook you up, man. If you need anything, just send me the files and I'll take care of it.
Wow.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. You got it, man.
That's cool as crap, man. Thank you. So, Jake, how about you? How's your week been? How's work going? How's the band? How's all that stuff floating around?
Work's good, man. Just figured out I'm kind of putting together a new band. I think we talked about that. So that's going good. We got pretty much the whole band together now, just thinking about practice. Moving in a couple weeks, so all that stuff's kind of on the back burner while I'm doing that. And other than that, just living the normal life, enjoying the heat out there by the pool, that kind of stuff.
You ain't kidding. It is absolutely freaking stifling outside, man. Just stifling. But anyway, I'm glad you guys are doing well. I'm super pumped about tonight. Tonight's guest her name is Bishop Rita Strigala, and she was ordained as a reverend in 2017 and ordained a bishop in April of 2022. She is also a chief exorcist through the Confraternity of St. Michael the Archangel, the Sacred Order of Exorcists, and chief exorcist of the Celtic Cross Communion International. And one of her mottos is, "Hey, Satan, read the end of the book, you lose." She's also an accomplished paranormal investigator as well. Before she got into her ministry, it's my understanding that she did some stuff before that. So she's got a lot of experience. I've had the honor to have several wonderful conversations with Bishop Rita, and really thankful that she's going to be here. And we're going to talk about exorcism, demonology, and paranormal investigating through her ministry. And also, I want her to talk about her ministry and how she's able to help other people. And at the end of the day, I think that's one of the most important things. Besides learning, I think that helping families who are under oppression or possession because let's face it, guys, the world's nuts right now. And a lot of experts in this field of demonology are warning that demonic oppression and possession is on the rise. So this is going to be a great show.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
But anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and let's bring Bishop Rita on. We're going to go ahead and bring her on real quick. Let me go ahead and just send her a quick invite into this conversation. And we have with us today Bishop Rita. Bishop, thank you so much for being with us and welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
We are so stoked that you're here. There's so many things we can talk about, but at the end of the day, before we jump into anything, into the main parts of our conversation, tell us and our listeners a little bit about yourself and your background, how you got involved in the ministry, and in being a paranormal investigator and an exorcist.
It's been a wild ride. When I was growing up, when I was 5, I had my first paranormal experience, and that's what pretty much. All my life I've wondered, how do these things happen? How does something speak when it doesn't have a vocal cord or a voice box or something like that? And I couldn't understand why I could not see whatever it was. And so it became a lifelong quest to find out, how does this happen? Well, then I found out that I had a gift as far as taking pictures, and I would get the craziest, clear pictures of things that I can't see. And that became another burning quest. It's like, why can my camera see this, but I can't? And so that pretty much is what propelled my journey my whole life. And then when I turned 50, things started to change rapidly for me. I had a paranormal group since I was 16. I've literally been the head of paranormal groups since then.
Wow.
And when I got to be 50 years old, something just started changing drastically. And it felt like whatever was pushing me at this point, you ever get to a point where you feel like you've seen it all, you've done it all kind of thing?
In some aspects.
Yeah. And it happens in different scenarios and stuff like that. Of course, none of them are exactly the same, obviously, but you've, had this happen before, but in another setting or whatever. And it's kind of like, well, is that it? That's all there is, kind of thing. Don't ever ask that. Don't ever ask that. It was right after that things started going downhill as far as going towards the dark side. And that is something I strove to stay away from my entire life. If I thought that a case had something that was demonic, possibly demonic, I would go out of my way to find someone that could help those people, because I was not qualified to do that. And I didn't want to do that.
Neither am I.
Yeah, I wanted to stay as far away from that as possible. But it became very clear that it was like, this is the direction we want you to go in. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. And I knew the Lord was pushing me, that this is what he wanted my calling to be. And I'm like, Lord, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. He started putting me in situations that, like, we never got another haunted house after that. It was like all going progressively downhill. People thought they were in a haunted house, but they had like somebody that had a possession, or there was demonic items in the house that had to be taken care of. It was all going in that direction. And it bothered me. It scared me. I'm not going to lie. I didn't want anything to do with that. And I kept saying, Lord, I don't want to do this. Please don't push me in this direction. But it was odd, because it seemed like every case we had that was like that, at the end, something inexplicable would happen. And it would be like a giant, see, I got your back, kind of thing. And it's like,
Right.
And it's like, okay, yeah, you got my back, but I still don't want to do this. And honestly, it took him a good year. He was so patient with me. It took him a year to get me to actually accept my calling. And the things he had me go through during that time were just incredible. I mean, literally, like the first thing that we saw, he started us out with the best of the best. And one case we had was a police officer who was a 24-year veteran of a Marine. And he came back, and he's now a police officer. And he had something going on in his house, and he could hear it. He recorded it, and it scared the heck out of him. And so he called us to come down there, and that what he ended up having at that time was actually the stairway to heaven. There was a huge portal over that whole neighborhood. And he had the best of the best there. He had angels in there. And basically one of his battle buddies that had gotten killed was the gatekeeper, basically, type thing. And they would go through his house. It was so odd. You'd go in, you go down the hall to the master bedroom, walk in, go around the side of the bed, and they'd go up, and they were gone. And it's like, what?
Wow.
It was insane. Yeah, it was crazy. And I remember the girl that helps me do these. Jesus works through me. I'm his vessel. When we do the exorcisms and things, I'm his vessel. She is St. Michael's vessel. And I remember her looking at me and saying during that time, she said, if we're seeing the best of the best now, at some point we will see the worst of the worst. And I'm like, nope, not going to be there for that. Nope. Famous last words.
So, let me, if you don't mind, I want to ask you a quick question now, because this is our first time covering demonology or possession or anything like that. Mm-hmm. For our listeners or those of us who aren't as familiar with some of these terms connected to demonology and exorcism and whatnot, what's the difference between infestation, oppression, and possession? Could you explain the difference between those three terms so people can have a better understanding?
Yeah. People generally become oppressed. Some let's see. There's other terms that are used for it, but it's basically they become I can't think of the dang word. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Take your time.
They become like fascinated and just, everything is just like they're just into it. They're really into it. And that kind of sucks them in. And then it starts oppressing them. And everything, it's depression. It's bad. I mean, it's really bad. And then if nothing is done about that, it can be attachments. It can be, everything is just oppressing. It's crazy. But they can go into possessed mode at that point. When they get into the possession point, they basically have no control over themselves. At any point, that entity can take them over, basically push them aside, or some people say it feels like they've been put to sleep. Some people, when they say they've been pushed aside, they can see everything that it's making them do, but they can't control it. They can't stop it. And they're along for the ride. And that's the worst of it, because it can hurt you. It can make you hurt yourself. It can kill you. It can make you kill yourself. So there's really the three steps, and I'm so sorry. I don't know why I'm blanking out on that first word, but
that's okay. It'll come back to you. It'll come back to you when you least expect it, probably.
When we get done, I'm sure it will. Yeah.
So do you consider? Let me ask you this. Before, you were actually about to get to you've covered. Okay, so you've covered you said more commonly, there's the oppression where you have more so it's like an oppressive, and then maybe there's some paranormal activity sometimes involved. What kind of activity have you and your clients seen during a possession or oppression case?
Oppression works more like an attachment kind of a thing, where you do have some of your faculties about you and that kind of thing, but they go into like a depression a lot of times, and it's like it's not actually in them yet. It's not taken them over yet, but it's working on them. It makes everything dark. It makes everything, it'll bring about your worst fears, your worst, things that bother you, that make you sad, that make you unhappy. It's getting you to that point where it can actually take you over. It's weakening you to take you over. And I've seen, oh my gosh, I've seen so much. It's sometimes it's kind of hard to figure out whether or not they've actually gone into the possessed mode yet or not. A lot of times with the actual possessed, they will lose track of time, or they won't remember things. People will tell them, well, you did this and you did that, and you have no memory of it, have time lapses, that kind of a thing.
It almost sounds like an abduction scenario.
In a way, yeah, I've heard the same terms. I'm not real familiar with that part of the paranormal. I'm not real familiar with the UFOs and that. But yeah, I've heard those terms. Some people believe that demons are actually alien forms. I don't know. I mean, I don't believe that. I believe, basically what the Bible says. And so but I don't know. I mean, that could be both. They could have,
I think that's what we're dealing with at the end of the day. I think that we're seeing a combination. I think a lot of this UFO stuff, and I have good reason to believe this, but I think a lot of this UFO stuff most of it has very heavy paranormal overtones, and I see connections to other types of phenomena, including demonology.
Yeah, I know there's people that believe that you see like the Hat Man, the shadow people, that kind of thing. A lot of people believe that is from another dimension. I really don't know. I just know that I haven't met any of them yet that have been good or have a good intent. So it's got to go, that kind of thing.
Now, in order to perform an exorcism, what process? I know from my understanding about Catholicism in general that there's a process that the church takes to investigate the situation, and then there's some unless you're doing like a minor exorcism, you have to get an approval from a bishop. Is that how you operate in your ministry, and then how do you determine also whether you feel in it within your soul, it's a genuine possession case?
I actually have the gift that I will see their eyes go black, and I will know they have a possession. If their eyes do not go back to the normal color that they are normally, then I know they have a lot in them. It's just something that's a gift that I have personally. Not everybody has that gift. But I know when somebody has one, they look at me, I will see their eyes go black if they do. But basically what I do is I go about doing an investigation. For instance, I did one case where it was in February, and they had told me they were having trouble. Their little one was like 2.5 years old, and he was trying to put his head through a wall. And I'm thinking he's, terrible twos. But then she called me and she was showing me he was actually ripping the door off the hinges of his bedroom.
Wow.
And he's 2.5. And I'm like, okay, we've got a problem here. And I'm thinking, man, this isn't looking good. And she gave him some paper. She was trying to make supper at the time, so she was trying to keep him, where he was in sight, but she could keep an eye on what he was doing. So she gave him a piece of paper and a crayon to draw. And she called me back and she said, I got something you got to see. And I said, okay. She puts it on video, and the kid has drawn 666 over and over and over and over and over and over and over again.
Wow.
She turned the paper over.
I'm out.
She thought maybe it was a fluke. And he just kept doing 666, 666, 666 all over the place. Yeah.
That's creepy.
So we went up there, and they had not had any, as I'm saying, it was in February. They had not had any kind of, sometimes you'll have an infestation of something. You'll have the rotten smells. You'll have, that morning she had gotten up, and in their kitchen was an infestation of flies. And she called me and she said, you know, I don't understand where this could have come from. There was nothing in there last night. And she said, it's not like it's one or two. There's like 100 or more. And
Wow.
I told her I had had sent her some stuff before. I've got some stuff that I will give like the parents or children, but especially children, that if they're having nightmares, night terrors and that kind of thing, and they're trying to wake them up all hours of the night and that kind of thing, I call it Deem Away. And I send it to them and they just spray it, and they don't have the night. It wards stuff off for about 8 hours, pretty close to 8 hours. So she had some of that stuff that I had sent her. And I said, do me a favor. I said, put the camera on. I want to see what happens. I want to look at the flies, take a picture of it. She did. And I said, now put it on video. I said, I want you to spray that fly with that Deem Away. She did. And I swear, as God is my witness, that fly melted into the floor.
Wow.
It melted into the floor. I've sprayed ordinary flies with it just to see what would happen before. And of course, they're just mad and buzz off. But yeah, they melted into the floor. Actually have a picture of it.
That's powerful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We went up there and then that turned out to be exactly what we thought it would be either. Got up there and here we're having to do an exorcism on a 2.5-year-old. And it was weird because I saw it. I knew it. I didn't know it was coming, but I knew something was coming. And as I watched the little boy, he turned and he cut his eyes over to his mama, who was sitting right over here to my side. She was just sitting on the floor watching, and it jumped into her. And so it was on, and she's a fighter.
Wow.
So it was on. But I looked over there because she had been drawing. She had just been trying to keep him calm and that. And I had another priest was with me, and he was the one that was working with the 2.5-year-old. And I looked over at her, and something I'd seen him cut his eyes over, and I thought it just was unsettling. And I was watching her, and she was writing, but she wasn't looking at the paper. And I'm like, what's going on here? So I turn and I look over, and she is writing in Latin the word death backwards, morte, over and over.
Wow.
And over again backwards. And I said, yeah, we've got a problem.
Holy crap. Do you care if we squeeze in a little Q&A with Jake and Greg?
No, not at all.
Okay. Jake, I want to let you kick it off. I'll let you guys, I'll give you the floor.
Sure. So, do you use that type of, drawing and such as that? I've seen that used before to kind of coax out whether there might be some type of subconscious demonic activity. Is that the reason why you had them drawing, or was that just something that calm the child down?
That was just something that would calm mom down.
Sure.
She liked to write. She's a very good artist, and so she knew as long as she was acting like she was, everything is okay and everything's calm, that her little boy would feel more like, everything's okay, mom's okay, I'm okay. And that it just took that turn.
Gotcha. Okay. And then the Deem Away, what is that? What does it consist of, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, it's a recipe that I have. It's and I'm going to be happy to share it with y'all. It works very well. It's actually starts out with holy water, and then there's holy oil put in it, and then there's several different kinds of oils, and it smells good. It's just the oil and the blessed water. It has blessed salt in it, and the holy oil in that, and it works very well.
Wow. Okay. Wow. So it sounds like it's got a little bit of everything in there to cover all of your bases, so to say, if you had to. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely very useful.
Yeah. And it works really good. I spray my room with it every night.
Good to know.
Yeah. If you want some, I'll send y'all some.
Sure. We would appreciate that, I'm sure.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Because we're gonna be going out in the field. We got several field projects that are coming up, and we're investigating this area that I've coined the Coal Mountain Triangle, and it has everything from A to Z happening in here. Even a satanic cult that's been operating out of this one town for decades.
Oh,
So,
boy.
that sounds like something blessed by the Lord that would help us.
Amen. Yes.
Amen.
Greg, you're up.
Yes. My question also was, when it comes to things when you are attached with an exorcism, are you able to do that out of your own accord, or do you need that from? Do you need the permission from the church to do that?
No, I'm the chief exorcist for the entire East Coast and for the state of Alabama. If I've done like just over 200 cases, and so they trust my judgment. And if I know that they need it, then we just, of course, we get their permission. That's why they came to us to begin with. But I keep them so that they know exactly what's going on and what's, so that the church I still have their backing and everything. And I want them to understand what I'm doing and why I'm doing it that way. And mostly I'd love for them to be able to train some other people, because our church is international, and I'd love for them to be able to take some of this back with them, because, exorcism's been going on in every single culture of the world since, I guess, pretty much the beginning of time. So there's always a need for it in all different cultures. It's just different the way that they do it. So I would like to be able to teach some so that they can take that knowledge back with them.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, Bishop, I have a question now also. Now, could you explain what your type of Catholicism? Can you tell us a little bit about your church and how it stands apart from like the Jesuits or Roman Catholic or any of that? Could you explain that to us as well?
Yeah, Old Catholic, they part with the Roman Catholic in that the Roman Catholic, the priests do not marry, can't have children, anything like that. In Old Catholic, you can marry, you can have children, don't do divorce kind of thing. But you can, they can be married. They have, it's a little different. I mean, we do all the same feast days and things like that the Roman Catholics do. We do follow, or can follow, the rite of exorcism of the Roman Catholic. Personally, that's not how I learned it. I came with the church later. I'd been doing exorcism prior to being with them. So, I mean, I can do it both ways, but it's more natural for me to do it more of a kind of a charismatic type. I've seen things happen. One of the priests that I was mentoring me, he had been a shaman, and fifth generation shaman. And he just had it in his heart that he wanted to be a priest. And honestly, tried to talk him. It felt like that's what he was supposed to be. And once he did join and become a priest, he had a hard time marrying the two. He knew how he used to do exorcism in the Cherokee way, as a shaman, and he was very strong at that. But as a priest, he was struggling with the Catholic rite, and he would get so frustrated because he couldn't get it to tell him their name. And for me, what I've found is that I don't want to know their name. I don't need to know their name. I don't believe they tell you the right name anyway. I believe they're telling me, Bubba, who's bigger and higher up over here, that's my name. Yeah, now you've called him in. So I just, I'm more comfortable doing the charismatic. I can do the Roman Catholic rite if need be. If that's what my client is, what they're used to, yes, I will do that, definitely, because it will make them more at ease, and it makes them feel like they're, it's being done right, if you want to say it that way. Most people I know, though, don't really care. They just want it out. I mean,
I don't think there's a wrong way to do it. As far as like, I know Protestants, I'm Protestant, but I'm an open-minded Protestant, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
But personally, like, I know I know groups around here who deal with diabolical hauntings and possession, and they have they call it a deliverance. Some people call it the deliverance, and they're very successful, just as much as a lot of Catholic exorcists are successful. What's your thoughts on that?
I agree. I completely agree. I think every culture has their people that do exorcism. And I think one of the reasons why it is so, the people that are used to doing it and that they trust, and that why they are so successful is because the person that is possessed, that is in that culture, for instance, I remember one that I was called into who did not believe in Jesus. They don't believe in Jesus, or they didn't. They were Cherokee, and they did not believe in the Christian way. So therefore, she wouldn't respond basically to, it's like that. Why would I call on him? I don't believe that he was anything but a nice man, kind of thing. So it kind of gets you wondering. It's like, well, if they don't believe in Jesus, how is this going to work? Because I'm calling upon him to come in, and so it can be tricky, but it's to work within what they're comfortable with. I mean, I call on Jesus. Don't get me wrong. Every single exorcism I do and have ever done, I call on Father God. I call on Jesus. But to do things in a different way, instead of the Catholic rite, so to speak, they couldn't understand that, and it didn't mean anything to them. They don't. Calling in the saints and that sort of thing, it just didn't mean anything to them. But we got the job done. But I feel like once you go within whatever culture that they are familiar with, you're going to have an easier, more successful time of getting it done.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that. A lot of really successful groups that I've heard of. There's one, like I said, there's one local, and I believe they're called Interlight Paranormal. They actually they have I think they had last I heard years ago, they had like a nurse, they had a Baptist minister, they had a Native American medicine woman, and I think maybe I want to say there was an electrician and a police officer also. Mm-hmm. They had a pretty good pretty all-star team,
That's awesome.
And a nurse too. I don't know if I mentioned that, but there's a medical professional of some kind. Do you have is your outfit kind of like that in any way, or do you consult doctor? Do you ever consult doctors for the mental illness part, or the possibility of it all being mental illness?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. If it's something that I really feel is paranormal, is demonic, that kind of thing, and that they do have a possession, they will need to get a psych eval, just so that we know that there's not other things going on, schizophrenia, that there's, the whole dissociate disorders, that kind of thing. Because, and it's not that I won't do one on someone like that. It's just that I need to know that is also there, because the demonic can also imitate that. And they can also, that actually makes it easier for them to get in.
Or they can cause the mental illness itself. I mean, you can be dealing with, but I think that's actually pretty common.
Yeah, and it's almost like an open doorway. It's like a weakness that they exploit, and so in fact, there's very few people that don't have something going on. I don't say everybody's has those exact problems, but there's been people that I've done that have taken a bad fall, hit their head, and they're a wide open channel. They don't know how to shut it down. Everything's going through them at all times. There's that kind of thing. There's on the autistic spectrum, it's amazing how they all interlock so easily, and how any weakness, the demon's going to exploit. That's what they do. So you just have to be very mindful of that. And if you know what is up front before you go into it, you can better prepare and deal with it.
Absolutely. Amen to that. We're getting towards the bottom of the first segment, but before we go to break, I just wanted to ask you also, Do you people? I've heard of a few. I've studied one of the many aspects of the paranormal I study is parapsychology.
Uh-huh.
I'm actually quite fascinated with parapsychology in general. Now, I've heard of people. I've studied through those studies. I've actually looked at a lot of near-death experience cases
Yes.
because my uncle, when I was about 8 years old, told me about a near-death experience he had that was so amazing, and it fundamentally changed his life. But I've heard of situations where people have multiple near-death experiences,
I've had,
or and then when they come back, they have some sort of attachment to them. Or have you heard of a situation like that? And you were going to say, I believe you were going to say you had one as well,
I've
correct?
two near-death experiences. Um, it just it I hadn't really heard about that. I mean, I've heard more. I haven't really heard of them coming back with an attachment from that. I have definitely heard of people coming back from astral travel, and will have attachments and will bring back, which sometimes is what I kind of wonder if that isn't where shadow people come from, but that's just me.
The plateau.
So that's, but yeah, I had not heard that other about the near death experience once coming back with an attachment. It could happen, I guess. I just didn't, I wasn't aware.
Um, would I think this is a pretty good spot to take our break. But when we come back, I would love to talk about just some general stuff about what you know about demonology, uh, how we can protect ourselves from these entities, horrible entities. And maybe we could, if you want to, if you feel like it, maybe we can, if you can tell us about a couple of your more interesting cases that you've investigated or whatever. But I think that'd be, and whatever else you want to talk about as well.
Sure.
All right.
That's great.
You're listening to Project Stargate Fringe Research. We're here with Bishop Rita, and we'll be right back. I do have an Uncle Bob. And welcome back to Project Stargate Fringe Research. We're here with Jake and Greg and our special guest, Bishop Rita, the Exorcist. Bishop, tell us. Before we went to break. We were talking about a little bit about demonology, and you've investigated a lot of cases and you performed a lot of exorcisms. How many exorcisms are you at liberty to say you've done? And also tell us about some of your cases, both with and without possession involved.
Okay. I haven't actually counted. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 that I've done. That's been over a 7-year period. One year we were doing just about 2 exorcisms per week. And it got to the point where it was just taking down a lot of my energy. It was taking me longer and longer to come back from it. So kind of backed off a little bit from that. It was hard. It was a hard year to do that. But it really, I saw a lot of different kinds of cases and things that, like I said, there's no 2 are ever the same. Learned a lot, still learning every single day. I really believe that if you really do get to the point where you think you know it all, that's when you're in big trouble. None of us knows it all, not at all. So I had a case. This was during the pandemic. Happened in 2019, I believe it was, and I think it was in June or July. It was in a summer month, and there was I was, every now and then I will get I will hear something from my guide that will let me know that there's something coming up, something that I need to check into, somebody that needs help, that kind of thing. And it happened to be that it was a certain graveyard that had a lot of Confederate soldiers and that were buried there, but they were not at rest. And I was asking my guide, well, what's the problem? Why won't they go? Are they being held there? And there were a few of them. There was a very negative presence that was there, that was trapping some of them, but some of them just didn't want to go. And I said, why don't they want to go? Why would they want to hang out? Why would you want to stay here when you could go be with your loved ones? And it was told to me that they felt very unappreciated, that they were actually thrown in a mass grave somewhere else. They put up like a headstone for them in this cemetery, but they weren't actually buried there. And they just felt like they were unappreciated. And the way that it was handled, they didn't actually get a funeral service. And so I thought, well, I'm going to go rectify that. So I got Colleen is the senior sensitive on my team. She's the one that can see them. She sees the demons just as well as she sees you or I. Same solid form. Can tell you exactly what they look like, what they're doing. I can feel what they're doing to the person that's possessed. I can feel like if they're putting talons into their stomach or something like that, they're having trouble with, and that kind of thing. So I more feel it. She sees it. And so with the two of us, we pretty much have the big picture. So we went down to this cemetery. It's in Alabama, and it was during the pandemic. There was not a lot of people out in that, and I had planned I was going to give them a proper service, a proper funeral service, so that they could go on. So first we went down there. As I was leaving the house, I had my cleanse kit. We always do Holy Communion prior to doing any kind of anything that's, has to do with the demonic anywhere. We always do Holy Communion prior. And so I had my cleanse kit, I had my communion kit, my traveling altar, and that kind of thing. And as I was walking out the door, I also had some medals. I had from different wars, conflicts, and that I used to collect. And my dad was in the military. So I had some medals and I was going to take them along. And as I'm walking out the door, because of course I've got like my arms full of everything, and I'm thinking, what am I going to put these medals in? So I turned and look, and on the countertop is my dog's dish that I had washed and dried that morning. And I thought, oh, that'll work. And it's nice pink dish with little, puppy paws on it. I'm going, surely they won't mind that. So I grabbed it. I had my dad's flag, the 3-corner flag from when he died. And out we went. We get to the cemetery, beautiful day, just absolutely gorgeous, blue sky. Just couldn't have asked for a nicer day. I walk into the cemetery, and there is somebody had carved this most beautiful cross. It was about 6 foot tall, and it just had RIP inscribed on it. And I thought, this is the perfect place. This is where we're going to do the service. So
do you mind if I share a photograph of that?
No, please do.
I'm gonna pull these photos up real quick on the screen for those of you watching us on YouTube. I'm going to go ahead and share these pictures, and for those of you listening, Miss Rita will also kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about as she has. So is this the cross you were talking about?
Yes. That's the cross, and that's my dad's flag down there at the foot of it. And then I put I put the traveling altar thing on the crossbar of the cross. And I started doing a funeral service for them, a military funeral service for them, and went through the whole thing. It was beautiful service. It really was.
I bet it was. That's very humbling.
Oh, I took the dog dish, and I've got it in one of the other photos, but I took it and I put it on top of the cross itself.
I think I see it.
In it. And before I did the service, I blessed those medals, and I asked Jesus to bless the medals. And after the service, I asked each of them to come by and please take one of the medals that they had more than earned it. And as they came by, I was playing taps. I had taps play on my phone, and I was saluting them the entire time until taps ended. At that point, I took my camera and I just took some pictures around, and this is one of them. And you will see, if you look close, there is a white glow coming out of that dog dish. where the blessed metals were.
I believe
Oh,
I
wow.
believe I can see that actually. It does appear like that there's some kind of an like illuminating anomaly of some kind
Yes.
emanating from that dog dish. And
Yeah.
and for those of you listening only, we're looking at a beautiful, as she said, we're looking at a very very pretty carved wooden cross, and she put some of her dad's medals and folded a flag, and it's a beautiful beautiful sight. And on the top, the doggy dish she was talking about does appear to be emanating some sort of glowing anomaly. Which would it be okay if I posted this on our website, on our Facebook page for
Sure.
our listeners?
Absolutely.
I'm going to do that whenever here later tonight. I appreciate that. But anyway, go ahead, continue, please.
Okay, so I've had people that have looked at it and have said like, and I love, that's what I love sharing about the pictures, and that is because people have different ideas about what it might be. What I thought it was, Jesus is the light, and he put his blessing on those metals. That was what came to me. But another person said that they thought that it was actually the gratitude that was being shown by the soldiers that were taking those medals, which could be. And yet another person said that in the war, they had dogs in the wars as well. And that with it being in that dog dish, that may have been, that they appreciated that I don't know. I mean, your guess is as good as mine. But that was awesome. It was so unexpected. And then I took another picture towards the back of the cemetery, and there was nothing reflective at all in this place. It's just regular tombstones and a lot of grass and trees and a gravel road. And in the back is a glowing figure.
Right
Oh,
there, right there
And
in the middle. And it
yeah,
looks like it looks like a humanoid figure, no doubt in my mind.
I thought that
yes.
was some type of headstone or monument that someone had placed there. Wow.
If you'll show them the close up of it, you'll see you'll actually see the foot.
Oh, wow.
It
So
looks like,
wow,
looks like they're wearing a robe or something like that. I was told it was an angel that was watching the service.
When I first saw the photograph, I'm glad you included this one. Thank you very much.
Sure.
I'm looking at this photograph, and at first when I looked at it, I said, that does look like a figure, but also at first I was like, this also looks like it could be also possibly the sunlight hitting the tree in a funny way. But as I look at it very closer with this much better image enhancement, I do not believe that is even possible, because it's so bright. It's much brighter than your sunlight. I can compare it side by side to the non-enhanced version, and there's definitely a difference in how bright the sunlight is hitting the environment, like the trees here, for example, than this right here. This is much brighter than all this. So there's definitely something anomalous in this photograph.
Yeah, it was very humbling to see that. It just made everything so much better. I don't know how to explain it. It just made me feel like they so appreciated it. And I'm just so happy we got to do that. Very happy we did that.
Me too. Anyway, moving forward, hang on one moment. Let's see here. I'm going to stop screen sharing for the moment. Now, how did you? So, do you think that case had a successful resolution? Do you think that had a successful resolution? Okay, that's really good to know, because I was listening to Art Bell years ago, and he had Father Malachi Martin on.
Yep.
Is one of his 8 or 9 interviews he did with him, and I've listened to all of them several times. But they were in one episode. They had a parapsychologist on board with the conversation as well. A guy who, actually, he was involved with Project Stargate. Actually, he wasn't a parapsychologist. I misspoke that, but he was involved with Project Stargate. Are you familiar with that?
I have heard of it. Yes.
Okay, so the remote viewing program, spy program. So him and Father Malachi Martin was talking about about clairvoyance and this area, this node that they call the plateau. Have you heard that term, number one? And number two, do you think that maybe that might be like fourth dimensional time space or something like that, where our body would first pass through after death or out of body?
I'm not sure. I'm kind of on the fence about it. I really, I don't really know. I really don't. I haven't really studied that. I believe there's different dimensions and things like that. I guess I'm just more of a simple person. I just, I know what I see and what I feel and what my guides tell me and what I've seen and that. I'm not really sure.
What's one of the worst cases cases of possession you've seen?
The absolute worst one I have seen has held up as a number 10 all this time. And I hope I never get another one worse than that. It was really bad. It was a young Marine that had come back. He had been blown up over in Iraq. He had suffered awful wounds. He ended up having to have a pacemaker put in. But he was about 32-ish years old, maybe 34, something like that at the time. And another group from Tennessee had sent me an email one morning and wanted to know if they could refer this case to me, that they're paranormal group, but they don't handle anything that's demonic, which I absolutely respect that. I really do. That was me for years and years and years. I mean,
That's us too, by the way.
yeah, if it's not something you feel comfortable with, don't try it. It's not worth it. This case was the most violent case that I've ever been in, ever had. And he was telling me about that they had asked, the couple had lived down in Birmingham, Alabama, and they wanted them to come to their house and that. And they said, well, let's see if it's really them or not, because the wife was saying that she thought her husband was possessed. And they said, well, I'll tell you what, why don't, we live in Tennessee, you guys live in Birmingham, why don't we meet in Huntsville, somewhere in the middle-ish, and we'll do an interview with you and that and see what happens. If nothing is coming out or emanating or something like that, then maybe it's your house is really just haunted. That wasn't the case at all. They got there, and first thing that happens is they get their equipment set up and everything. They're going to record their interview with the guy and that, and of course all their equipment just went dead. The batteries just sucked dry.
Electronic interference. Yep.
Big time. Yes. And then this entity that was in him was kind of like trying to be a jokester, constantly going, "You want to see a trick? You want to see a trick?" And they kept saying, "No, no," and it was just doing awful things. And finally, I guess at the end of it, where they just felt like they were in big trouble, which they probably were. This guy was extremely violent. I know that at the time we went to help them, he had already been taken to the psych ward 3 different times, and it was only March 5th. So since January to March, he'd been taken, and it's taken anywhere from 6 to 8 officers to get him in a car each time. And it was extremely brutal.
Superhuman strength.
Yes. When they left, when he just decided he would give them a show, when they decided that it was time for them to leave, because they were scared, and rightfully so, because he could have really hurt them bad. And the entity that was in him took him and threw him head first into the air conditioning system in the hotel room.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, massive head bleeding, this awful. And
did anybody witness this?
They tried to get it on tape, but they witnessed it personally and they attested to it. But as far as getting it on tape or that, it had drained all of their stuff, even their phones and everything. So they could not get it on that. Now, I got some of that. And what happened was I spoke to his wife, and she sent some explicit stuff that she had taped I still have one of them that he's sound asleep. He's actually snoring, lightly snoring, and the voices are just coming out of him. He's totally comatose, but the voices are coming out and talking to her and telling her things, calling her the daughter of God and this kind of thing as mocking. So
Man.
I knew before I ever met these people, I knew in fact, I told my guide, I said, if I take this case, I said, this is going to change my life forever, isn't it? And she said, yes. And I knew it. I just knew that this was going to be one for the ages. And it was, and I asked how many people was I going to need on this investigation to be able to control him if he went into possessed mode. A lot of times they don't. You go in and, try to interview them and they try to lay low or lay dormant and make you think that they're not really there. Not this one. Oh, he loved to show out. And my guide said anywhere from eight or more would be good, but no less than 8 people.
Do you mind if I interject real quick? Something. Yeah. This is something that I don't know if you're familiar with, but I wanted to add to this. I know, being an Army veteran myself, and I've heard I know of soldiers and Marines and sailors and airmen that come home from the Middle East from combat or being stationed over there sometimes. They've never had any kind of paranormal phenomenon going on in their life whatsoever. And then when they come home, all of a sudden they're having poltergeist outbreaks and this and that's going on. A hypothesis I have is that in that region of the world, there's these demonic entities called the jinn, that people call the jinn.
Yep.
I wonder if this was the jinn.
It's possible. I know on a different case I had, the husband was deployed. He came home for about a 10-day stay and then went back, and they had a fire demon that is basically called an ifrit, and that was and I believe it came back with him from over there, and we had to banish it. Their house actually caught on fire before they called me. And there was a fire demon in there, and we had to get rid of it, banish it. But I believe it came back with him.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to add that fact in. That does happen. I've heard of a lot of instances, but please continue.
Okay. The gentleman does and still does have PTSD really bad. It's, and I don't know how you couldn't in that environment, honestly. But anyway, so we got there to the house, and I actually ended up having I think it was 10 people with, and which was good. The only problem was 2 of them had never been to anything before, and I normally would never bring somebody into a situation like that. But honestly, we needed the strength, and I learned a lot from this one. Trust me, that this was like one of the first ones I did. So I made mistakes. I've readily admit it. I mean, I can see that now. We got everything. Praise God, by the grace of God, worked out in the end. But it was horrific. So we get there, and the wife is sitting out on the steps, and I hear this unholy, ungodly screaming in the house. And I walked up and I said, what's going on? And she said, he went into this. She just kind of called it, this, what you're hearing 30 minutes ago, kind of laughed and smiled and said, this isn't going to go well for them. He's locked himself in the bathroom with a knife and was screaming at the top of his lungs in Latin.
Oh my God! With a knife, he was armed.
Oh yes. He had it was a 6-inch blade. And as we walked into the house, he was putting that blade through the bathroom door. He did it 13 times. And screaming, guttural, snarling, you name it. I mean, just the most ungodly noises you've ever heard. I made sure that everybody got everything out of the kitchen, like knives, forks, anything that he could use as another weapon, hoping we'd get this one away from him. And you know, I had one of the people said, well, how are we going to get him out of the bathroom? I have this chair that I use when I know it's going to be something that's extreme, that has chains on it, and that I call it Sparky in jest, but it's, you know, so that we don't get killed, literally. And he said, how are we going to get him out of the bathroom and get him into the chair? And I just looked at him and I said, you know what? I said, I'm not really sure. I haven't had one this severe before. I said, but I promise you I will. And sure enough, we got him to come out. And I think I told you that Jesus works through me. St. Michael works through Colleen. And St. Michael had fought this particular demon before. When I explained this to Colleen about this case, she said, he's fought him before. And I said, well, I don't know. You know, I have no idea. And she said, no, he's telling me he has fought him before. And I thought, oh, great. Okay. So once he came out, he was doing this where he was throwing the knife hand to hand, pointing it at me and, you know, saying, you need to get while you can, you need to go now. And I said, you need to put that knife down. You don't need that. You know that. He took that knife and he threw it into the floor, which was a wood floor, and it embedded about 3 inches in. And
that's unbelievable.
It was just crazy. He was taking cigarettes and putting them out on his skin, and never flinched, never anything. He put one out on his tongue. The crazy, one of the craziest things that happened though was he was standing there and he went into the kitchen to go get something. I don't know what it was. I ran over and I had to put my camera down. I had to grab that knife with both hands, rock it back and forth over and over before I could get it out. And I threw it out the front door.
Wow.
He came back in there, saw that his knife was gone. He looked at me and he said, you took my apparati. And I just looked at him, didn't say anything. And he said, that's all right. I'll make one. He turned around, put his hand in a fist, put it through a picture in the wall in the hallway, and had these huge shards of glass from it. He was barefoot and he was walking over that. He turned and he looked at Colleen, who was staring at him the whole time because Michael was staring at him the whole time. He looked at him, and I swear to God, I have this on tape. He said, he looked at her and he said, Michael. He said, you want to do this again? He said, I will whip you. There was nobody in that house in the physical named Michael. He saw St. Michael there.
Wow.
So this thing went on. It was extremely violent. He literally turned into a snake at one point, was slithering. If he'd have been out of the chair, he'd have been slithering on the floor. People ask me, how did you get him in the chair? How did you get him to let you chain him? I told him, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to sit in that chair now. He turned around, he hit his head on the light above, and he said, oh my God, she does know. And he turned around and sat down in the chair. He had to. I had the authority with Christ.
Wow. That is creepy.
We got him chained up. It took, oh my gosh, we were there for hours and hours and hours. He had so many in him. And of course, they always leave the strongest one for last because they try to wear you down with all the minions and all the other ones. So by the time the big one comes to the forefront, you're tired. But we got him. By the grace of God, we got him. And we got him out of there. And then we had to exorcise his wife. And one of our people that was there holding him, one of them jumped into him. And we had to do him as well. They also had a curse on the land. We had to do that. Once we were done with all of this, it took me every bit of 3 weeks to get all of my energy back. That's how much energy this all took.
And how many sessions did you go through with this gentleman?
Well, he had 3 legion in him. It took a long time. We went through, we would get it out. We would get several of them out. He would come back. In fact, it was over 2 hours before I actually met the man himself instead of the demons. And then he would go back into possessed mode of different demons, different mannerisms, different languages. It took a really long time, but by the grace of God, we got it done.
Wow. That's chilling. That's chilling and humbling at the same time to me.
It was very humbling. It sure was.
Do you let's do a little Q&A here with the guys. Greg, would you kick it off?
Well, I know that it took a lot out of you, but my question is, and I'm sure I would like to ask a lot of people who do exorcisms, there has to be some sort of mental scarring from all of this. Is there a time where you have to sit down and talk to someone about what it is that you do and the toll it's taken on you?
I've talked to a lot of priests, stuff like that. I have not spoken to like a medical person, just because I don't want to say a lot of them, the ones I've known, let's say, they're not open to, they would never believe that a person was possessed. They believe that they have, having some kind of a psychosis or whatever. And he did have problems. He had PTSD. He absolutely did. And he did have dissociative disorder as well. Unfortunately, some of those personalities in him kind of liked the demons, and would emulate them at times as well. But they did not have the strength that demon had. But yeah, it does. It comes back at the oddest times when you're not expecting it. You'll have a memory or something like that. Like, for instance, I don't ever watch horror shows. I don't ever watch stuff like that, because those demons, they're smart. I don't care what anybody says. These things, most of them are very smart, and they know what bothers you. They'll watch you. They'll watch your mannerisms. They know what scares you, and they'll use it against you. They'll use everything against you. And unfortunately, the people that they're in, they've got all their memory banks. They know what bothers them, what scares them, and that. It's horrible what they do to these people. It really is. But yeah, it does take a toll. I'm not going to lie. It really does.
Good question. Jake?
Yeah, so obviously this was an event that took some time for response. It wasn't something where you were on scene right when it happened. Just a little, what should someone do in the event that help isn't right around the corner, or help isn't just up the street at the church? Which precautions should people take while they wait? Well,
it's hard because you never know which one it's going to be that's going to come through or whatever. I told the wife, she'd been dealing with it for over 1.5 years. She felt like she knew how to handle these demons. She would never be confrontational to them. She liked to, if they were angry or whatever, she would get them to talking, it's almost like that they had pride in themselves, that they wanted to boast about what they can do and that kind of thing. And I would always caution her, don't believe what they say. They're the father of lies,
Amen.
So you don't believe what they say. I understand why she's doing it, and that's the way she, would be able to preserve herself. What I was concerned for were the kids in the house. Get the kids out of there. Get them out. They don't need to see this. When we bring him back to his, to his self, those kids are still going to be afraid, because everything that's happened, they have his physical image in mind, and they don't understand that it's something else you can't see that was making him do this. And so I was very, very worried about the kids, and I was thankful she took them to her mother's house, and they stayed there. It was about 3 weeks before we could get down there to him. We had such a backlog at that time. But I would just tell her, if he's getting violent or something like that, do what you've done before. Call the police, have them put into the psych ward for another week. Let them do their evals on him, and that. At least they have restraints and stuff. He's not going to be hurting you. Some of the tapes, and I mean, she would tape when she would talk to, when it was talking to her about things. And I mean, just to hear, a lot of times they're sent to like the dry places in the Bible. You send them to the dry places. I send them to the foot of the cross, so Jesus can decide where he wants them to go and what he wants to do with them. And but this demon, one of them that was in him, had been wandering around in the dry places for a long time, apparently, and he was absolutely fascinated by trees. He was constantly wanting to go outside and look at the trees. And she asked him, well, what is the big deal about trees? Don't you have trees where you are? He said, no, we don't have anything like that. It's just gray, it's dry. And he was just absolutely fascinated by trees. And that just never was something that would have never have occurred to me. It was just one of those weird little tidbits that sticks in my mind from all this. It's just like the insanity of it all.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Very interesting.
So I have a question. What are give us a little bit? Tell us a little bit about a phenomenon that's associated with oppression and possession.
Well, I mean, a lot of there's actually times where the person that you have is not in, not a possession. It's just an angry spirit. It's somebody that passed over that was human at one time, and this is the way they were in life, and they're just mean and crotchety, and they were thinking that it was a demon, but it wasn't a demon. And there's a big difference. One of the ways you can tell is a human spirit, for them to lift or throw something more than 3 to 5 pounds max is way too much energy for them to expend. That's about the limit you're going to get, 3 to 5 pounds max. When it's a demon, I mean, they can throw a 500-pound couch through the wall and never break a sweat. They have no bounds to their as far as how much they can lift and weigh and all that, and the energy that it takes to do that. That's been, a few times with that. You're really wondering, are you dealing with a possessed person here? But again, when I would work with these people, I didn't see the eyes go black, and it's never failed to work for me. So it was kind of, I'd look at them thinking, well, man, they're sure acting that way, or they sure thought they were. But in the end, it wasn't. It was not a possession at all. It was just an angry spirit, and dispelled it from their house, and they were fine.
Wow. What is there a difference between a demon and a fallen angel?
To me, it's the same thing.
Because there's a lot of Christian philosophy goes both ways on that.
Yeah.
I've heard theories, all kinds of interesting theories. I tend to lean towards what you believe as well. That the demons are in fact just simple matter of fallen angels.
Yeah.
And I think that there may be many different types of them and leagues and my understanding about a little bit of what I've learned about demonology, they're in all kinds of cultures. They've embedded themselves in many different cultures.
Absolutely.
There's one, the movie The Exorcist.
Yep.
The entity was called Pazuzu. There is a real entity called Pazuzu, and that statue is real. Just to give an example. But they've embedded themselves in all different kinds of cultures, it seems. In the Middle East, I think they're called the jinn.
Yep, they are. They are. And also never, ever say a demon's name out loud, ever. It works like a summoning. So don't ever, if anybody, oh, I did this one, that one. No. You don't ever say it out loud. But
that attracts them to you?
It's kind of like a summoning. Yeah. It's like, you called, here I am.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Don't need anything.
No, no. So yeah, don't ever. And in fact, a lot of times on my Facebook page. I've got a lot of people that like to hear about the cases or whatever, read about them. And so I will, because my memory is not as great, I'm getting older. So when I do a case, a lot of times, of course, I change the names and that kind of thing, but I will put, if it was a remarkable kind of case for whatever reason, I will go ahead and write it up in that, and I'll put it out there because I ask people, my prayer warriors, to pray when we're going into a case. And then of course, when we're done, they want to know, well, how did, what happened? So then I will go ahead and I will post it on there. And it's amazing even just to go back and to reread over them, because there's been so many I've forgotten. It's like, oh wow, I forgot about this one. They're all different. They all have different characteristics to it. But as you say, they do. Every culture has their own set of demons and basically and what they call them and how they handle it, different ways to expel them. It's really interesting. It really is, because there's so many different ways. And people say, well, if you don't do the Catholic rite of exorcism, you'll never get a demon out. That's not true. They were expelling demons out of people well before there was a Catholic religion. So that's, I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just saying that, there are different cultures and things that I believe work better for whoever it is that's possessed.
That's very interesting. Very interesting. And it kind of makes sense what you're saying a little bit, because you hear about different cultures, performing exorcisms, and they might call it something a little bit different, or they might call it an exorcism, but the result seems to be the same.
Exactly. Yes.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
In addition to being an exorcist, what else? Is there anything else you do with your ministry? What else do you like to? Are you into?
I'm actually a white light healer as well. I started out doing Reiki, became a Reiki master in 2015, and I still use the healing. But the whole time I was doing it, I kept I kept thinking, but why can't I just do this with Jesus? He uses me as his vessel. Why can't I just ask him to use me to help others in that way? And there's like different symbols and things like that you use with Reiki. When I ask Jesus for, that healing to give to someone else, basically, I can feel when he's with me. He's with me right now. We're talking about him. He's right here. I can feel him. He's got a vibration of all his own. It's very deep, it doesn't feel like anything else that I've felt. And I can literally feel when he steps into me when I do one of these exorcisms. And it's just, I just know he's there. And I thought, well, I can feel him. He helps me do these exorcisms. Why can't we heal these people too? And so I started, asking him to put his white light, push it through me so that I could be the physical conduit to that person. And we do that. And it's, to be able to take someone's pain from them, is what a gift that is. That's some of our most horrible moments while we're here on earth, is the pain that we have to go through associated with, emotional or physical. And to be able to lessen that, or to take it from somebody, that to me is like one of the best gifts you can have.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Do you conduct mass normally? Do you ever conduct mass? Or
Yes.
And is that done on what days do you conduct mass on?
Now, I do this. What I do, I don't have a church a physical church that I call people into. When we are going to, an exorcism or whatever, we always do mass and Holy Communion prior. And it's always, I go to the people. I do what Jesus did. I go to the people. And, my group that's going to be there, whatever, and I ask the family if they'd like to join in. And we have mass, and I do it right there at their house or wherever it is we're having to do the exorcism at.
Wow. Have you written a book yet?
Actually, I did, but this was before I became an exorcist. This is when things were starting to turn, and it was pushing me in that direction that I didn't want to go. And I remember I moved home to take care of my parents. I lived in South Georgia for 10 years. I came back home to Alabama to take care of my mom and dad as they were getting elderly and needed more help. And I remember I got here in March, and this is funny because I tried writing a book when I was in South Georgia, and I couldn't do it to save my life. It just wouldn't come together. And it was just like, yeah, I'm not meant to do this. I got here and it's like, I need to write some of this stuff down. I did a 21 chapter book in 3 months time.
Oh, wow.
And
Dang.
I still don't know where chapter 8 came from because I'm really not good at physics. It was like, wow, it blew my mind. And it's like, why couldn't I do this when I was down there? And this was all part of the year that it took me to accept my calling. I came down to the part of getting it published, and all of a sudden it hit me. I knew why he made me write that book. He was trying to show me how far I had come, because it literally started out with when I was 5 and had that experience, and how everything had progressed it to where I was that day, that time. And I thought, oh my gosh. So it wasn't, it can be published, but it was, to me, it was like, I can't believe it. He made me write that whole book just to show me how far I'd come, to give me some confidence. That's what I lacked. I did not want to step into this calling. Number one, I was scared to death of it. But number two, I just, I didn't have the confidence. Even though I'd had groups since I was 16, I did not have, groups that went out to find the demonic and take care of them. So it was a big deal to me. But that was part of my year that he just, it was like at the end of it, it's like, see, I got your back. I was like, oh my gosh. So,
Wow.
yeah, I have written a book. I just haven't published it.
I've got one final question for you. But also, Jake and Greg, if either one of you guys have something else for her, please jump in. If y'all need to jump in, either one of you need to jump in real quick.
I'm good.
I'm good. All my questions have been answered.
So here's what I got. So we kind of briefly talked about earlier. I think we kind of briefly mentioned a little bit about UFOs and the idea of aliens or extraterrestrials. Do you believe that in the possibility of life outside of our planet somewhere, or even across another dimension? And then B, do you think that they're going to them coming to Earth and doing these things that people are reporting that are akin to torture, basically, and other horrible things? Do you think that this is against God's will if that's happening?
It's a big question. Yes, I definitely believe there is other life out there. Absolutely do. I just can't understand why there would be this huge universe and we'd be the only living, creatures that God made. To me, that just doesn't make sense. So yeah, I do believe it. I believe people are seeing something out there. I actually had a UFO experience. The one and only time was like 2 years ago.
Wow.
During the day. And I looked up and I went, what the heck is that? I was on my way to work and I couldn't for the life of me figure it out. And I say that it was UFO and that, to me, it wasn't unidentified. I'm not saying it was alien. I just don't know. I don't live far from Redstone Arsenal. So I know the government puts all kind of stuff out there that we have no idea about. Was it something like that? It could have been. I just don't know. But I know it definitely got my attention. And I definitely believe that there is, that there are aliens. I do believe that. As far as what they do, I've often wondered, I've heard the same thing you have about, them kidnapping people and doing experiments on them and stuff like that. And I wonder, I don't really follow it close enough, so I don't know, maybe have there ever been reports of people that have been say that they've been abducted or whatever, that had a pleasant experience.
So so yes and no. Yeah.
Okay.
Most of the ones I have researched have ended up the same way. It might start out as a pleasant experience, but when they go under really, really deep regression, they recall something else that are other things that akin to rape, torture, mutilation, and
Oh,
psychological abuse.
yeah, that's
And
not. Yeah, that's. I don't know. I'd had people ask me before, well, do you think that they will come and take over because mankind's run amok and all this stuff? I said, no, Jesus is coming. If they come, that's on their own agenda. But I believe, God's sending them for that? No, I just don't. I don't have any kind of proof of that or anything. But yeah, the things I've heard, I don't know. I mean, I've heard people say too that they have like no emotions, that they have no, apathy at all for what they're doing to the people, or
they don't, not even an ounce of it.
Yeah, and to me that almost sounds demonic. I mean, because that's what the demonic do too. They try to hurt you. They try to annihilate you. I guess these the aliens, they stop short of that, or they wouldn't be coming back. But to the person at the time, it must feel a lot like that. I don't know. I really don't. I can't in my mind figure out why. I mean, why would they be doing these experiments unless they're planning on doing something?
So I actually have a theory about that.
I'd love to hear.
Check this out, okay? So back to the book of Genesis.
Yep.
And it made mention of the sons of God. And the sons of God was also, I think, mentioned somewhere in the New Testament, and there was a reference to Satan with that. Just a side note. But at any rate, it talks about the sons of God lusting after the women of the earth, and this and that happened, and then these giant beings they called the Nephilim was supposedly the product of something, some kind of union of something and women. Yep. That's something in theology, but kind of makes sense. But what I think might be happening is that this group of ETs that are operating in a very clandestine manner, like an intelligence agency would, kind of. Okay. They do these things to people, and I'm an experiencer myself. I've had some kind of experience. I have some conscious recollection. Anyway, I think that what they might be doing is they might be in cahoots with these fallen entities, these fallen angels, and that maybe they're trying to recreate what happened back in the days of Noah before the flood.
That's interesting. That's
so,
really.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jacob.
Go ahead.
Oh, there is a delay there. I'm sorry. So is that the book of Enoch that you're talking about? Is that the book? I thought I've heard that story before.
I think I have not read the book of. I'm going to let Rita answer that here in a second, but I don't think it is. I think it's made.
That completely wrong.
I think they talk about it in the book of Enoch. Rita.
Yeah. Honestly, I haven't read it either. I'm just being honest. I haven't read it.
I know Enoch's mentioned in Genesis, isn't he?
Right. Yes, it is, and I know that's the story of how he was kicked out of SA was kicked out of heaven, and that they were thrown down to earth, and the whole that's really interesting. That's really an interesting. I never heard that before, but that actually that's thought provoking. It really is.
This is just part of the culmination of over 19 years of research. And including some of my own personal experiences. There's a lot of parapsychological phenomenon associated with UFOs and the so-called abduction scenario, including electronic interference and EMF spikes, and as well as telepathy. Usually, when I had a experience with these entities that they call the Greys, when I was very little, they didn't communicate with me verbally, but they instead projected. It's like they were kind of projecting ideas in my head, like "come with us" or "do this" or "do that." They didn't seem like they were very to the point, very simple. It's like they're not very intelligent. They're just like maybe they're just some kind of biological android programmed for a specific job or purpose to interact with mankind and do horrible things.
Now, do you believe that there are aliens living on Earth, or just come to Earth, or what do you believe personally?
I don't know. I really don't know what to think about the idea of aliens living here. It's possible. I'm open to the idea. I haven't really given it any. I've been so wrapped up with the other aspects of the paranormal that I have not really had the chance to really dig into that. But there's a lot of colleagues that have been on my show that seem to think that it's going on in some degree. I had Betty and Barney Hill's niece, Kathleen Martin. We had 2 interviews with her,
Wow.
and yeah, I think it seems like that either her or this other guest I had that she's friends with, I think, told me that might be going on in some degree. And then they certainly talk about it on a lot of these documentary shows, and people have written books all about it. There's also these entities now. I think the Greys, like I said, I think that there's 2 kinds. There's the short ones, and then there's some taller ones. The taller ones seem to have, from what I've never encountered them to that I can recall per se.
Mm-hmm.
But what I understand that they're actually are fairly intelligent, the tall ones, but the small ones are kind of like, it's like they have no navel, and this is from the words of Daryl Sims, the alien hunter. They have no navel. They have no genitalia. They have no belly button.
Huh.
So that means they were not
born
through any sexual reproduction that we can understand, at least. They were probably cloned, manufactured, or grown, hatched, whatever you want to say. Any of that stuff for the purpose of interacting with mankind and doing a lot of the dirty work for some higher intelligence. The question is, who is the higher intelligence? This is the question.
That reminds me, we had a case, and it's the only one I can remember right off the top of my head, where there were, Colleen saw aliens there. And that was the first time she'd ever said something like that. She said, they are so tall. And I said, what are they doing here? And she said, I don't know, but they're here. And it's really weird because we had a camera, different cameras in different rooms, had it rolling. She went into the master bedroom and was calling on the angels to come in. And I swear, and I can send you the video. It's a very short video. This thing comes out of the ceiling, comes down, and just about touches Colleen on the shoulder and gone. And when you slow that down frame by frame, it looks like a spaceship. I don't know what else to say.
Wow, that's fascinating.
It's bizarre. I can send that to you so you can see it. It's crazy.
Yeah, please do.
The first time I ever seen anything like that.
Does Colleen, your friend Colleen, does she do interviews? Does she ever do interviews or anything like that?
She might, as long as she would not want to be on camera, but she would probably do like a voice one.
Wow, we'd be really interested in talking to her. What do you guys think?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
I'll ask her about it. But yeah, that was crazy. That was a crazy.
That is insane. There's a lot of the other thing. I'll add to that. Like I said earlier, there's a lot of the whole UFO and alien thing, or interdimensional entity. I think they're interdimensional entities of some kind, to be honest with you, specifically, because if they're from another galaxy, they would have to transcend time and space to get here. That's the only way I can think of that they could, bending time, space, and all that fun stuff. So they'd have to travel across dimensions basically to get here.
Well, let me ask you: Do you think time warps are Is that an alien phenomena?
In some cases, it might be. But what's interesting about that is I had parapsychologist Lloyd Auerbach on our show. You remember guys, when we had Lloyd with us?
Oh, yeah.
That was a great interview, by the way, Rita. You should go back and listen to it.
I will.
Anyway, when we were talking about, no, it wasn't Lloyd. It was Mike Ricksecker from the Discovery Channel. I think
Okay.
Lloyd talked about it also. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We had a conversation with several of our guests, and some hauntings may be the result that don't seem to have any intelligence behind it. It's just something that happens over and over and over and over and over again. One of the possibilities is a time warp. You could be looking into another universe, basically, or another part of it. You might be having a clairvoyant experience. You might be accessing information, something that happened in the past as information, basically, a visual information. Yeah, it is. It's very interesting. I'm also a member of the Rhine Research Center. I'm a member of the Rhine and MUFON, so I really take a hard look at all this stuff. So
Yeah, that's interesting.
do you have a website do you have a website up right now, or are you putting one up?
I'm putting one up. Yeah, I had one for the longest time, and ended up getting so overwhelmed that I had taken it down just so we could get caught up with everything and that. So I mean, people can reach me through Facebook. I would like to share real quick things they can do to keep the bad stuff out of their house.
I think that's a great way to end the show. Let's do that.
Okay. It's so much easier to take care of this prior to getting something in than it takes a lot more to get them out. But there's things that you can do that will make it less hospitable for them, and they won't really want to stick around. I say weekly, go through your house with either incense or white sage. Just cleanse the house that way. It'll take any kind of negative energy. It will take any kind of residual energy, that kind of stuff, and it just get it out. And you just want to make sure you open either a window or a door. Start at the other end of the house of where you've opened that window or door, and just move everything towards it. And just take and cleanse it out just once a week, because, attachments and things like that, you get that everywhere you go. You can get that. Every time you go to Walmart, I get that. So, they're everywhere. They're on other people. They may think you're more hospitable. They can jump on you. A lot of times bad moods and things like that can be because of something like that. So it's just easy if you can cleanse out your house like once a week. You'll really feel it's a lot lighter. Once you get used to it, you'll feel the difference in when it's getting heavy with negativity and stuff like that. Also, another good thing is to keep the clutter in your house down to a minimum. We all have stuff, don't get me wrong. And I'm glad you can't see my love seat over here in the room right now. I was cleaning the room and there's a bunch of stuff on it. But the clutter, it actually, to the demonic, it indicates that that's also the way your mind is. And so to them, they perceive it as a weakness. And so that's where they will start to try to drill towards is, your mind and stuff like that, because the clutter and that's just what it means to them. They can hide. It's chaos. That's something that they love, is chaos. That's what they try to create.
That makes total sense.
So it's good if you can cut down on the clutter and just, have your house in order. It means it's also your state of mind is in order then. So that's helpful. Every single house I've ever been in to do an exorcism, even do investigations, that kind of thing, is dark. Keep your house light. Keep it airy. Open up the shades. Open the curtains up. They love the darkness. That's where they dwell. Don't give them that. They don't like light. So if you can keep it light in there and that, it's a huge help. They don't have so many places that they can hide then. So that's a huge help right there. Another thing is and I can't stress this enough. Tell people in your house that you live with, tell them you love them. Tell them that a lot. Laugh a lot, dance a lot. It raises the vibration. When you tell someone you love them, it raises your vibration and it raises theirs. It makes them happy. Demons don't like happy. They're down on the lowest level of the universe. Their vibration. That's where they like to be, and that's where they want you. So deny them that. Tell people you love them, laugh a lot, dance a lot, love a lot. That's I can't tell you what a big help that is in keeping darkness at bay. So do that. And it helps both of you, really. It raises both the vibrations. Take some bells and go through your house every now and then with bells. Demons hate bells. Big time.
Really?
Yeah. Yes. I have lots of wind chimes on my porch, and that keeps them away from there. They hate bells. I can't tell you how many people I've done that I've exercised that I'll take ting shaws. When I go through and cleanse a house, I end it by going room to room and ding a ting shaw in each corner of each room, just making sure that I got everything. They absolutely hate it. They will get away from it. A singing bowl, bells, laughter, all that stuff. It raises the vibration. In fact, I got thrown into a wall by a demon one time because I apparently missed one, and they threw me out of the room when I did the ting shaws, head first into the wall in the hallway 4 feet away.
Ouch.
Broke my ting shaws. I was so mad. And Father Billy and Father Art were there, and they heard the big clump onto the floor. Came out there. I had a big cut in my forehead, and of course, head wounds bleed like crazy. And Art said, Billy, take her in there, put some ice on her head. He said, I'm going to take care of this. And I'm like, oh, heck no. I'm like, and let some demon think he got something over on me? Oh, hell no. And he was saying, nope, you go, you're going to go. So Billy took me in there. I sat down on the couch. I counted to 10 and ran right back into the room. And just in time to see Art just take care of it, get rid of it. But yeah, so they hate bells. Yeah. So that's
Wow.
a good thing to do. And if you have any kind of, religious art or objects or things like that, don't keep them in a drawer. Put them on your walls. It's a reminder to you what your faith is and what you believe in, and that your house actually belongs to the kingdom of God. And it also lets the demons know they're on notice. They see that cross. They're not happy. They don't like it. So if you can take and do any of these things, just whenever you consciously think of it, or at least once a week, you'll keep your house in order. It keeps your mind in order, and it keeps the demons from lurking.
Wow, that's awesome, man. That's coming from a real exorcist who's been there, done that, and she knows what's going on right now. Bishop Rita, I have really enjoyed having you on the show, on the program. Definitely would love to have you back some other time. It's been great to have you guys.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
I think it's been wonderful. Thank you so much for the invite.
It's my pleasure. And we'll on my Facebook page, I'd like to post some of these pictures that we were talking about, and also anything else you want to share, just let me know, and I'll post it.
Okay. Well, I will send you that little 1-minute video or whatever of that thing that comes out of the ceiling. Looks like a spaceship.
I definitely want to see that, and I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Also, thank you, Jake and Greg, for being with me again, as always. And thank you, all of you, for listening. Please remember, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe button. It would help us out a lot. Please, right down below. And thank you for listening to Project Stargate Fringe Research. We will see you again next week. Good night.